A temporary reprieve? The stock market is on edge as President Trump contemplates the future of Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Will he fire him, or will Powell's tenure continue amidst the economic uncertainty? President Trump has once again set tongues wagging on Wall Street. He recently declared that he wouldn't fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. This, after months of publicly chastising Powell for raising interest rates. But hold your applause, folks. Trump, never one to be pinned down, made sure to add that he wasn't making any promises. This begs the question, is Jerome Powell the man responsible for steering the American economy on borrowed time? Is he living on the precipice of a presidential pink slip? One thing's for sure, this story is far from over. The president's comments, delivered with his signature blend of ambiguity and bluster, have only added to the uncertainty surrounding the future of the Federal Reserve. Let's rewind to 2017, a year of significant political and economic shifts. Trump, fresh off his election victory, was full of praise for his newly appointed Fed chair, Jerome Powell. He lauded Powell's extensive experience, his steady hand, and his potential to guide the American economy to new heights, emphasizing his trust in Powell's leadership. Powell, a former investment banker with a reputation for pragmatism and a deep understanding of financial markets, seemed to embody the kind of business acumen that Trump admired. The president, eager to distance himself from the economic turmoil of the previous decade, saw in Powell a safe pair of hands, a captain capable of navigating the choppy waters of global finance and steering the economy towards stability. For a brief period, there was a palpable sense of optimism in the air, a feeling that better days were ahead. The markets, buoyed by the promise of tax cuts and deregulation, soared to record highs, reflecting the newfound confidence in the administration's economic policies. Powell, for his part, seemed content to play the role of the quiet technocrat, diligently working behind the scenes to keep the economic engine humming, ensuring that the policies were effectively implemented. But the honeymoon period was short-lived. As the Fed began to gradually raise interest rates in an effort to curb inflation, Trump's tone shifted. He grew increasingly vocal in his criticism of Powell, accusing him of sabotaging the economic recovery and undermining his presidency. Trump's attacks on Powell, delivered via Twitter and in impromptu press conferences, became increasingly personal. He called Powell clueless and a bonehead, accusing him of trying to make him look bad. The president's outbursts, unprecedented in their ferocity and frequency, sent shockwaves through the financial world. Investors, accustomed to the Fed operating with a degree of autonomy, were rattled by Trump's attempts to publicly pressure Powell. The markets, once a source of pride for the president, began to gyrate wildly in response to his pronouncements. Trump's repeated threats to fire Powell have raised a crucial question. Does he actually have the authority to do so? The answer, as with many things in Washington, is complicated. The Federal Reserve Act, the law that created the central bank, states that Fed governors can be removed by the president for cause. This means that the president cannot fire a Fed chair simply because he disagrees with their policies. There needs to be a legitimate reason, such as negligence or malfeasance in office. This legal ambiguity has created a great deal of uncertainty surrounding Trump's ability to remove Powell.
Some legal scholars argue that the president has broad discretion in interpreting what constitutes cause, while others maintain that any attempt to fire Powell without a clear justification would be met with swift legal challenges.
Section 5. Humphrey's executor setting a precedent. The legal precedent for removing a Fed chair is murky at best, with no clear guidelines or historical examples to follow. The most relevant case is Humphrey's executor v. United States, a 1935 Supreme Court case that involved President Franklin D. Roosevelt's attempt to remove a member of the Federal Trade Commission. This case has been pivotal in shaping the boundaries of executive power.
In that case, the Supreme Court ruled that the president's power to remove officials from independent agencies is limited. This decision was a significant check on presidential authority. The court held that Congress intended for these agencies to be insulated from political pressure, and that the president could only remove officials for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. This ruling emphasized the importance of maintaining the independence of regulatory bodies.
While Humphrey's executor dealt with a different agency, the principles it established are widely seen as applicable to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, like the FTC, is designed to operate independently of political influence. This case suggests that any attempt to remove Powell without a strong legal basis would likely be challenged in court. Legal experts agree that such a move would face significant judicial scrutiny and could set a controversial precedent. Section 6. The Fed's Balancing Act, Independence and Accountability. The Federal Reserve occupies a unique and pivotal position in the American system of government. It is an independent agency, meaning that it is not directly accountable to the President or Congress, allowing it to operate with a degree of autonomy. This independence is designed to allow the Fed to make decisions based on economic considerations rather than political expediency, ensuring that monetary policy is driven by data and analysis. However, this independence does not mean that the Fed operates in a vacuum, isolated from the rest of the government. It is ultimately accountable to Congress, which has the power to amend the Federal Reserve Act or even abolish the central bank altogether, providing a check on its power. This delicate balance between independence and accountability is essential to the Fed's ability to function effectively and maintain public trust. If the Fed is seen as being too beholden to political interests, it risks losing credibility and undermining its ability to manage the economy effectively. On the other hand, if the Fed is perceived as being completely unaccountable, it could face a significant backlash from Congress or the public, potentially leading to reforms or restrictions on its powers. Thus, the Fed must navigate this complex landscape carefully, balancing its independence with its responsibility to the American people and their elected representatives. Section 7. The stakes are high. Economic stability hangs in the balance. The stakes in this standoff between Trump and Powell are enormous. The Federal Reserve plays a critical role in maintaining the stability of the American economy. It sets interest rates, regulates banks, and acts as a lender of last resort during times of financial crisis.
Trump's attempts to interfere with the Fed's independence have raised concerns that he is putting his own political interests ahead of the health of the economy. His attacks on Powell have created uncertainty in the markets and could potentially undermine the Fed's ability to do its job.
A loss of confidence in the Fed could have far-reaching consequences for the American economy. It could lead to higher interest rates, slower economic growth, and even a recession. Section 8. Global Ramifications. The world watches and waits. The drama unfolding between Trump and Powell is being closely watched by governments and investors around the world. The Federal Reserve is not just America's central bank, it is also the most powerful financial institution in the world. Its decisions have ripple effects across the global economy. Trump's attacks on Powell have raised concerns about the stability of the global financial system. They have also damaged America's reputation as a reliable economic partner. The uncertainty surrounding the future of the Fed is adding to the volatility in global markets. It is also making it more difficult for businesses to make investment decisions. Section 9. A legacy defined. Trump's economic footprint. Trump's handling of the Federal Reserve will be a defining aspect of his economic legacy. His decision to repeatedly attack Powell and undermine the Fed's independence is unprecedented in modern American history. The long-term consequences of Trump's actions are difficult to predict. However, it is clear that he has damaged the institution of the Federal Reserve and eroded public trust in its ability to act in a nonpartisan manner.
Trump's attacks on Powell are also part of a broader pattern of behavior in which he has sought to undermine the independence of other institutions, such as the Justice Department and the intelligence community.
Section 10. The future of the Fed, navigating uncharted waters. The Federal Reserve is facing a number of challenges in the years to come, from the rise of new technologies like cryptocurrencies to the growing threat of climate change. However, the most immediate challenge facing the Fed is how to navigate the current political environment. The Fed needs to find a way to maintain its independence and credibility while also being responsive to the concerns of Congress and the public. This will require a delicate balancing act, one that will test the skills of Powell and his successors for years to come.
The future of the Fed is uncertain. However, one thing is clear. The central bank will play a vital role in shaping the American economy for generations to come.
Section 11, a cliffhanger ending. The saga continues. So, there you have it. The president and the Fed chair, locked in a high-stakes game of chicken with the fate of the American economy hanging in the balance. Will Trump back down from his threats to fire Powell? Or will he risk a constitutional crisis by attempting to remove him without cause? Only time will tell how this drama unfolds. But one thing is for sure, it's going to be a bumpy ride.